Okay, we're going to finish off with sexual complementarity and difference. Doing pretty good for time, I have to say. So, now as we said, the invisible or the spiritual is manifested through the visible, the physical. I tend to repeat myself a lot. These are key points. That's why I continue to remind them, and they're the foundation for what we're going to talk about. John Paul II says that the male and the female are two different ways of imaging God with different aspects. Physically, men tend to manifest, just speaking physically now, men tend to manifest the strength of God. You find that in Scripture a lot where, God exercises his power. Psalm 29, God's voice resounding on the waters, God stripping the forest bare. Whereas physically, women tend to reflect God's beauty. When we get to heaven, we're going to experience what's called the beatific vision, and that's where we see God face to face. And we're going to be so wrapped up in his beauty, his glory, that we're just never going to want to take our eyes away. Right? Women reflect this in a physical way. But because there are physical differences, there must also be spiritual differences. Right? Because the invisible is expressed through the visible. These differences, social, emotional, mental, are meant to unite us, but because of the fall, they often divide us, as we said last time. Because it requires us to love. And love is difficult because we are selfish. So we'll speak of a few of these differences. Now I'm stealing this straight from Dr. John Gray's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And actually I'm not even stealing it from him, I'm stealing it from a summary that somebody gave of him. So none of this, don't attribute any of this to me. So first, there are social differences. Okay. Men tend to reflect the active nature of God, women the receptive. Men are task-oriented. They find their fulfillment and their sense of worth in what they do, what they accomplish, what they build, what they make, what they get done. And men also know that nothing great is accomplished without a fight. That's why men like to get dirty. They like to get bloody. They like to wear the battle scars, right? I won this battle, and I have the scars to prove it. They also like to be part of a team and have a role in winning that battle. That's why they're so into sports, team sports. I think this is very important, all this battle and team and role is very important for men. It's spiritual warfare, and that aspect of spiritual warfare is very important in the masculine spirituality. I just became a knight last night, and it was a lot of this. The rosary is your weapon, and there was a lot of this terminology, and I just loved it as a man. I just loved it. Anyway, men are task-oriented, whereas men are task-oriented, women are relational. They find their fulfillment and their sense of worth in who they are to others. I found this very, when I ran a Catholic young adult slow pitch team. Actually, I have a picture of my team on Carmen's website. I'll refer you to that afterwards because we're going to be discussing something. So I wrote something on there. We're going to be discussing it next week. But anyway, it was funny how men were, felt like they were in battle. They wanted to win this battle against the opposition, and we took it so seriously sometimes. And whereas the women were like, just take it easy, they didn't care. They were there really because it was an excuse to get together and socialize, right? In fact, the one player said to me, the one female player, we were winning about 19-6. I mean, we were smoking this other team. And she came up to me a couple of times that game and said, are we winning or losing? I said, obviously we're winning, we've scored 19 runs and they've only scored 6, but she was oblivious to it because she was just there to socialize. Number 2, mental differences. Men are like waffles. They're nicely compartmentalized and everything's neatly divided. There's no intermixing. Okay? They can focus on one area and block out everything else, and they usually do focus on one area and block everything else out, which is why they're not good listeners, which is why they're not good multitaskers either. And women are like spaghetti. Everything is mixed together, jumbled. They tend to go all over the place. Okay? Move from one area to the other. There's no fixed beginning. There's no fixed end. It's all muddled. There's an email I got some years ago about, it showed a chart of men and women shopping. And they said, and they laid out the chart, and they said, a man shopping for a shirt. And he would go up here to the shirt rack, come back down, $19. And then it would show a woman shopping for a shirt, and it would go up to the shirt rack, and then all over the store like this, and out, $350. And if you see, this looks like the square of a waffle, and this looks like a plate of spaghetti, right? That's why we say sometimes, women just can't make a decision, Well, they can. It just takes them longer, and it's a little more difficult for them. Last summer, I was in Calgary with my 3 aunts, and they decided we were going to order pizza. So they started discussing it. 45 minutes later, and I'm staying out of it. I'm like, I'm the nephew, I'm the guest, I'm just going to, let them decide. 45 minutes later, we still hadn't decided. So we go off to a movie. All the way to the movie theater, they're discussing where to order pizza and what to get. And they still didn't decide on a place yet. So we watch the movie, get out of the theater, and they're still discussing this. And then my Aunt Dora said, oh, look, at this place, there's an option to build your own pizza. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's going to multiply the permutations so many times we're never going to eat tonight. So finally I just said, look, on the way to the theater, we kind of decided that we would go to this one place and get this one pizza. So they went with that, and then they finally made a decision on a second pizza, and we did eat that night. Okay? But because women take longer time to make a decision, and because they do kind of think about everything, it sometimes means they'll make a better, well-informed decision. Men tend to sometimes be impulsive and oblivious to some things, not very well thought out. I have friends like that where I'm going to do such and such. Well, I'm just like, well, haven't you thought of such and such and such and such? Oh, no, not really. Okay. Thirdly, there are emotional differences. Say men are like rubber bands. There's they have this emotional equilibrium. And when they get stressed, they pull back into their caves. They resolve it, and then they snap back to that fixed point. So sometimes men get accused of being insensitive, but men tend to be very stoic. They're the situation, you might not see them cry, and they might go to their garage. And a lot of women can't understand that. It's like, why aren't you crying? And how can you be fixing the car at a time like this? Well, he's having a tough time too. He's just dealing with it differently. Right? Women, on the other hand, are like waves in the ocean. They go up and down. There's no fixed point. There's like this continuous and random emotional fluctuation. And it's often unpredictable, and women can't make sense of it themselves sometimes. But we say women are a mystery. And us men, when we get upset, we say women are crazy. But it's not true. Women are a mystery. We just can't figure them out. They are so deep that we just can't make sense of it. Okay? You can really see this in communication, all of this. Okay? As we said, men are really task-oriented. They're compartmentalized, and they're rational. So they give and receive necessary information. Okay? There's a logical flow and structure to it, a beginning and the end, a whole purpose for it. Whereas women, as we said, are relational. Everything is mixed together and fluctuates. They give and receive each other. rather than information. And so there's a lot of venting, expressing feelings, and processing things. That's why it goes all over the place, right? So to resolve this, essentially what we need to do is we need to be Christ to the other person. Okay? We need to learn to see, I have the tendency to say, they should be doing things the way I do them. They should be more like me. And we can't do that. You have to respect their differences. And you have to give a little, compromise. Men and women both have to do this. So men have to help women deliberate when they're doing this in their conversations, when they're expressing this to you. But I think women too need to trust their husbands, after he's helped her deliberate. Because sometimes it gets rehashed, and the man has to say, okay, we dealt with this, what did we decide, Because that could go on forever. But men need to hang in there until women get to the end. Because men want to solve problems all the time, And sometimes you just need to lay back and let them finish. And women need to allow men to think before asking another question. Sometimes they just get barraged, one question after another. And but the solution to the conflict between the sexes is the same with the solution to the conflict between all of us, which is to imitate Christ. There are 3 excellent resources for this: the Bible, the Imitation of Christ, which has some very good advice on the spiritual life, and I think a third one I would recommend to everybody is a St. Francis de Sales Introduction to the Devout Life, especially the 3rd section on virtues. Very practical and very insightful.